Welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, where we're talking all things aviation insurance, safety, and just discussing where the industry is and where it's going. And I always love bringing on leaders in various insurance organizations. And today, I'm very privileged to have one such of those gentlemen. And I'm pleased to welcome today Mark Pennington, who is the Senior Vice President, Head of Aviation, North America for Sompo, which most of you have known for the years as W. Brown & Associates. So going through some transition there. So, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Tib, and thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So yeah, just, as always, I love to have our audience know a little bit about your journey, kind of getting into the industry, which I remember back in the day, to where you're at today in your current role.
Well, it's kind of a straight line story, I guess you could say. I didn't have, coming out of high school, I didn't have too much direction as to what I wanted to pursue as a career. And so I did about 2 years of college just doing general studies. And in my second year at ASU, my girlfriend's father at the time was a pilot for Northwest. And I kind of got to experience like their lifestyle, their travel, their, just quality of life in general, and I thought, and he got to talking to me about how, a lifestyle of a pilot and how exciting it is and what you get to do, what you get to see. And so I kind of I started exploring that type of career. Took a discovery flight, and by the time I touched down, I was like, yep, this is what I want to do, And so from there I started exploring schools, and again, I was at ASU at the time, and while they did have a flight program, I kept hearing about this school that was the Harvard of the skies. And of course that was Embry-Riddle. And so I applied to Embry-Riddle, thinking of myself as Harvard caliber, obviously. I thankfully got accepted, not Harvard caliber, but so I started there in the fall of '99, and the pilot industry at the time was booming. So flying jobs airlines were picking up pilots left and right. As soon as you got your ATP, they were putting you in the right seat in the 737. So I wasn't looking at like a long stint before I was getting into an airline, and of course then 99 to 2003 was my tenure at Embry-Riddle, and of course 2001 that all changed. We watched the pilot industry just take a nosedive, and airline pilots were getting furloughed, so they were coming back. You had military pilots coming back with lots of turbine time. So now what looked like it was going to be a short stint was now looking like a very long stint, coming out of Embry-Riddle with 350 hours of total time.
Right.
And so my senior year, I was way ahead in my academic program, and I was a little bit behind on my flight. And so I was talking to my advisor, and he said, why don't you just switch degree programs from aeronautical science to aerospace studies? You can get your ratings outside of Embry-Riddle if you want, but that way at least you graduate. And by this time, I was already thinking, I'm not sure I want to do this for a career anymore. Looking down the road, and how much effort was going to be put into it to get to that airline position. And so I switched degree programs and started looking at other options in the industry. Just so happens I took a technical writing course my senior year, and one of our requirements was to write a career dossier, and I chose underwriting. So it happens. It fit my aptitude. I thought it's a good fit for me as far as my comfort levels and what I would want to pursue. Got to stay in the industry. And by the time I got that done, I decided, yes, this is what I want to do. And so the spring of my senior year, I saw a job posting from W. Brown & Associates on the school website. And from there, I interviewed shortly. I talked to them at the career fair at the end of the spring, interviewed with them right after. Was hired. I had an internship over the summer, was hired in the fall of 2003. From that point on, I spent 20 years under the expertise of Scott Brown and Vince Zimmer. Got to learn the entire product line we offered. So I got experience in every line, which I felt was very beneficial. Got to work nationally, which also was just added to the experience, We went through 2 different papers up until 2016, and then we signed on as an MGU, exclusive MGU with Endurance. 1 year into our contract with Endurance, Sompo purchased Endurance in 2017. At the end of the contract, the MGU contract, Sompo purchased W. Brown Associates at the end of 2020. So that's how we get from W. Brown to today, now that we are Sompo. And I was given the opportunity to succeed Scott Brown in his role as the head of aviation for now, the Sompo business unit, aviation business unit. Scott retired officially in 2023, and I took over the role at that point. While there has been a learning curve, for sure, for certain, I've gotten a ton of support from some senior leadership at Sompo. Many resources have given us the ability to kind of navigate the markets, and especially now the market has kind of changed, which I'm sure we're going to cover here in a bit. But I'd also be remiss to say that I have a rock star team that just has been phenomenal, and it really is the secret to our success and where we are today. So, very looking forward to where the future is and where we're going, and I'm just happy to be here in the role.
Yeah, the stories are always fun to hear. That's why I always love to include them. And with you, I got to, I was there when you first came on, and remember you and Mike, who's still on the team with you. Mike Myers kind of came around the same time, and you guys are still on that journey. And I appreciate your explanation, because there probably is some confusion. People who have been, in the industry, and obviously even insureds, very much know the name W. Brown. It's been one of the long-term successful managing general underwriters, or MGUs, as you referred earlier. And so, but those who are in the insurance industry also know the name Sompo very well. And I think it's becoming apparent that, you'll be transitioning more of using the name Sompo going forward. Is that a correct assumption?
That is on the docket. Yeah, we are in the process as we speak. So
Yeah,
some more formal announcements will be coming out, but
sure. But
yeah,
that way people will stay tuned for further updates on that.
that's always my goal, was to make sure that you're not losing anything with the transition to Sample. You're only gaining. So
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite questions is just when I'm talking to senior leaders in the industry is, what are you most excited about in the aviation insurance industry today?
well, I mean, I think for the most part, it's just the technology, the advancement of aircraft. What we were writing, and Tim, yeah, you've been in the business a very long time as well. What we write today is very different than what I started writing back in 2003. And so that constant evolution in aviation kind of keeps you on your toes as an underwriter. It never seems to get boring. And what we're seeing today, and again, I know we're going to speak on this a little bit, but some of the new products that are coming out, it's just exciting to see where the aviation industry is going. Secondly, and some people may disagree with me here, but the volatility of the market keeps you on your toes. You never seem to be able to get settled or comfortable, which causes you to have to think creatively and think outside the box. To me personally, that's an exciting thing for an underwriter, because, and I'm preaching this to my team all the time, that creative solutions are how you manage the volatility, and flexibility. And finally, to me, it's just the relationships that we have. You span 20, 30 years in your career, and people you work with become good friends, and you go to these conferences, and it's more like reunions than it is work. And so to me, it's the best part about the industry is, and this will never change, is just the relationships you have, whether it be underwriters, claims adjusters, brokers, of course, that they are, that to me is what makes it special.
Yeah, and I mean, I've noted sometimes I see, some industry people that live elsewhere more than I do some extended family. So just because it's, we're all in the same places at the same time. And so that definitely is, one of the best things about it. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. So, obviously I love to hear the flip side. What are your biggest concerns in the industry today? What are the biggest challenges you're facing as an insurer?
Well, obviously market capacity is a concern right now. Anytime we see a increase in capacity quickly, it puts a lot of pressure on rate, and we see a lot of pressure on terms and conditions. We see a lot of pressure on just the underwriting appetites in general change. And so while we had a good year-over-year rate increase for about 4 years, which I think we came out of a 13-year soft market, 12 to 13-year soft market, right? Rates for everybody knew rates were well depressed at that point. So the rebound was needed on the rate, and I feel like we got there. And now to watch it slip kind of is concerning, because you start to see the loss ratios creep up. You start to see, you have to pick and choose your quote, your what you quote a little more carefully. So that would be number one. The second is emerging risks. Biggest one is probably environmental at this point. You're looking at cat claims suddenly becoming a thing in aviation, which before you get hit every once in a while. Cat ratios always seem pretty low. But with hurricanes now, they're becoming more frequent, and then more frequently Cat 5 and larger. But the biggest one, of course, would be tornadoes. Yeah. Because with hurricanes, you can see them coming. And a lot of times you can get them out of the way. You can get the aircraft out of the way. But with tornadoes, there's no time, and they're becoming more frequent and larger. The area they hit is getting larger on the map. So this is climate change is definitely a big concern right now for us, and how we manage that, how we can figure out a way to underwrite it, and again, some of these things we're going to talk about soon help that, and we'll play into that. Another concern is rising costs. We have labor costs, we have parts costs, values of aircraft continue to go up, which make it very challenging. And finally, one of the biggest ones too is nuclear verdicts. The court systems have not helped us in policy interpretation and coverage interpretation, and so we're seeing these large claims that were unexpected. And so it makes it very hard to predict adequate rate. It makes it very hard to predict what your actual exposure is when those kind of come out of left field. So those are the biggest concerns at this point.
Yeah, and a lot of people hear that term climate change, and they either go off the rails one way or they go off the rails the other. But the fact is, and you're not the only one, most insurers are saying we are seeing increased weather-related claims, and so that's just a factor. It's the fact of what is happening, regardless. What's happening is there are more and more weather-related claims, and obviously those bigger events, create bigger losses for insurers. And I know everyone's glad always to get past Oshkosh with tens of thousands of planes there without a loss, because obviously a storm there would be, pretty catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
The other thing you mentioned is this is how, you've seen this, in your career. I've seen it a few times. Rates get to a sustainable level, then everyone wants to come in and have a piece of the pie. Rates fall just for competition, but claims cost, labor costs, they don't go down, and so ultimately it's not sustainable. And so we went through a hardening market cycle that's kind of ended, and some stability, and yet this increased capacity has caused some competition. At the same time, just as you alluded, the cost of everything is exponentially increased, even more than it has in the past, right? So the verdicts, nuclear verdicts, the cost of labor. I mean, everyone wants their insurance goes down, but they don't pay less for anything else they do. Right. But at the end of the day, it costs money to pay for insurance claims, and so you have to have enough premium to pay for claims. And I've told people that don't understand insurance that insurance is not a non-for-profit government entity; it has to maintain a profit, and so. That in mind, we've got these increasing, the cost of handling claims, the cost of labor, increasing liability awards. And at the same time, we've got rates stabilizing, if not coming down in quite a few areas. And so what needs to happen for, insurance companies to, stabilize, the rating and the premiums that are offered while still remaining financially responsible and stable?
Well, first things first is we need to pause an additional capacity. What that would do is that would help ease the pressure on the rate reductions, and ease the pressure on terms and conditions and increased exposures for the insurance company. Secondly, I think limit management is the best way to combat and allow insurers to predict an adequate rate. Um, as I alluded to before, nuclear verdicts cause us to not be able to see large limits coming, or large limit claims coming. And so, in order to, if we can predict our limits, our limit losses with limit management, then we are able to adequately rate and watch our loss ratios and keep our loss ratios in check. Finally, the sharing of risk, I think, is an excellent way to kind of combat the rising costs, as especially in the owner flown P&B market. As some of these CJ4s and phenoms get into the 8, 9 million, $10 million range, sharing the risk, going co-insurance versus taking that risk on 100% will help us maintain costs and be able to predict our exposures without any one claim being catastrophic. So.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, and obviously, emerging technologies can also help play a role in safety and predictive analysis. And so, that in mind, how do you foresee these latest technologies such as AI, telematics, data-driven underwriting? How do you foresee that impacting the underwriting process and the industry itself?
It's very exciting, and I think it's going to be a very useful tool. Um, the great thing about it is the ability to analyze the data that we receive, from AI technology, and telematics. Um, and what this will do is this will allow us to prevent accidents versus react to them. Because as of right now, we rely on historical data and trends, which is a reactive approach. With AI, we're able to have a preventive approach by targeting, higher risk and avoiding higher risk accounts that we can see that tend to have worsening trends. Telematics plays a huge role in that, tracking data, tracking weather patterns, tracking pilots even, to what their patterns are and what their habits are. I also find it's an excellent tool for pilots as a teaching tool. Pilots are always very competitive. I was a pilot one time, and if you nail a landing once, or you miss a landing once, you want to nail it the second time. And I think having that data at their fingertips actually helps them be more precise and be a more accurate pilot, or at least know that where they're lacking or where they're missing. Another very big benefit for our insurers is policy customization. Once we have that data, we can actually, instead of just looking broadly across a similar group of pilots and similar group of owners and aircraft, we can actually look at one owner who flies to very benign airports or very long runways, and that's in a very low weather related area. We can perhaps adjust rate based on that, as opposed to just looking at pilot history forms and just looking at, they're based in the US, they're based here at this airport. The only challenges, and some of the challenges, is the data quality. It's got to be accurate, and you see errors every once in a while, especially if you're using ChatGPT, and it doesn't quite get the context, and so it doesn't say what you want it to. And so I think the same would translate to the data. And so we have to be careful with that, and that will probably refine over time. But in the short term, that's something to watch out for. And finally, just the privacy factor, I think, is a challenge. A lot of pilots don't want to know, or don't want to have that data shared. So is that something we enforce, or is it by choice? And if it's by choice, how many pilots actually take that option, gain enough? Like, will that be effective enough for us to be able to underwrite profitably with that group? But yeah, those are some of the very exciting things I'm seeing out of AI and telematics moving forward.
Yeah, it's exciting in our industry, and I was the same way. I don't want the safe driving discount. I don't want is more safe when you take training, currency, and maintenance, and all those risk management very very seriously. And I think there's definitely going to be the group of pilots that they're already into it. I talk to regularly the owner group people, and they're all for it. And I think over time it's going to be a self-selection tools. The pilots don't want it, are going to find themselves not finding the best insurance program or rates, if rates at all. So at some point, yeah, it'll be in the future. It'll definitely be something I think is required, because aviation just, while it's statistically safer than any other mode of transportation, it's got more catastrophic risk involved, and it's fully able to integrate faster. But it's a new frontier. But that's
Mm,
what aviation has been for the last 120 whatever years.
absolutely.
And so it's definitely an exciting time. And speaking of which, I think you alluded to this earlier. We've got all these emerging technologies. We've seen the integration of drones over the last decade and a half or whatever, and now we're on the dawn of the advanced air mobility movement, the eVTOL, electronic vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, and they're in production test. A few models are starting to come out. What do you foresee are the challenges and opportunities of ensuring this new category of aircraft?
Well, it's eVTOLs are a little bit like the Wild West right now. You see a lot of R&D out there. Many new manufacturers popping up. And I think the first challenge that we'll see is there's just no historical data. We have nothing to base our underwriting on as far as trends. And again, maybe AI will play a big factor in this, and how we can predict it. But when you have no data to bounce it off of, even AI may not be able to help you out the gates. So I think limited historical data is going to be our first challenge, because we're just entering into an unknown, as far as what this looks like from an insurance standpoint and underwriting standpoint. The other issue is a wide variety of make and models. Which FAA certification is still, I think I saw an article the other day, it was about 2027 right now is when they predict they're going to start certifying the first models. What are the regulations behind that? What certifications are the FAA putting in, or requirements? So you're going to deal with almost like the LSA, manufacturers. There's just a lot of unknowns there, with each model, and how many rotors do they have? How many uh, are they? How many passenger seats do they have? Are they carrying passengers? Are they cargo only? So there's a lot involved there. Another issue is regulations and infrastructure. What does the infrastructure look like? Are heliports near, or eVTOL ports near airports, or do we have them downtown in parking lots, or do we have them in congestion? And what regulations are built around how people operate? Are there highways in the sky at 500 feet? Those are all issues we have to take into account, and I think it's going to take some time to really get that to a point where underwriters feel comfortable underwriting that exposure. Which brings me to and back to nuclear verdicts and limit management. Obviously people are going to want to protect themselves. From our insurance carriers going to be able to offer those limits? I don't know. And again, this is all something that takes a lot of time to underwrite and to get enough data to where you can comfortably come up with a way to write it. So out the gates, I think limit management is going to be a huge factor. Manufacturer like testing hours on an airframe, how much has it been tested? How many pilots? I mean, how many passengers? I think most underwriters will want to see low passenger exposures at first. You don't want to see these Airbuses, eVTOL buses flying around downtown LA, so, so I think that'll be a big factor. Pilots, I mean, is it anybody off the street with a driver's license can go buy an eVTOL and then take it off from their house and take off? We don't know, so. And how much training is involved? What training facilities are going to be available? So these are all going to be factors, and we're in the very early stages of eVTOL at this point. And so that's going to be, I think, some of the biggest challenges to get to a point where it's a normal thing, especially on the insurance side. Opportunities, though, it's growth in your portfolio. It's a brand new product, probably going to be a large volume, and so I think there will be opportunity out there if you can underwrite it correctly to profitably grow your portfolio with this new product. So it's a big opportunity. So
Yeah, it's another exciting thing coming down the pike, and as with any new technology or new category, it takes time, and obviously premiums generally higher until there's more historical data. But there are some interesting safety features, and I'm sure you've had conversations. I know a lot of the major manufacturers are trying to keep insurers in the loop on training programs and and their plans. And just obviously you have to stay up to date with it as it comes to fruition, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other part will be interesting is the claim side, because they'll have to be, we've got these similar propulsion units of turbine and piston engines and of various types for the last how many years, and more than 70 plus, and depending on which engine you're talking about. And now we got to become experts in. Obviously, these are there's serious money, serious research and development, and obviously, I think it will be good opportunities, as you said. There will be some figuring things out, but this industry seems to be on top of both insurance perspective and the manufacturers on top of getting it right for safety and for insurers. But at the end of the day, it's still the proof is in the pudding. So that's the part I think, as you alluded to, is still to come. But
Absolutely.
exciting opportunities for sure. Well, really good stuff, Mark. I just want to close by asking if there's a question I should have asked you, but I didn't, or if you just have any closing thoughts to share with our audience.
No, I think it was great, Tim. And again, I really appreciate you having me on. I think in closing, there's just a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, and a lot of interesting technology coming out. Underwriters, again, are going to have to stay on their toes to be able to navigate the market, to navigate new technology, to emerging risks, and that is just a very exciting thing for our job and our business. And for those frustrated out there with the market, this too shall pass. The market is a cycle,
Yep.
and all you can do is get creative and hold on tight and have a little fun in the process.
Yeah, and creativity is it's a valuable thing. People enjoy being able to be creative, and it gives more meaning to what you do. And I don't think a lot of people think about creativity when they think about aviation insurance, but that was something you pointed out that I really do appreciate. Well, Mark,
Sure.
it's always fantastic to talk to you. I'm so glad to be able to have our audience be able to hear from you and your perspectives, and it's been exciting to watch your journey in this industry, and it's always a privilege. So thank you for being a great guest here with us today.
Thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's all for this episode. Join us again next time as we continue navigating the waypoints in aviation insurance. Until then, enjoy clear skies and unlimited visibility.